Hello everyone, welcome to the monthly NRHS Iowa Chapter YouTube slideshow. If you're interested in more information about the Iowa Chapter, please visit iowanrhs.com. There you can join the chapter or renew your membership and order any of the great products that the Iowa Chapter has to offer, including DVDs and photo collections. Please enjoy the program this month and consider visiting iowanrhs.com. Hello everyone and welcome to the December 2022 Iowa Chapter NRHS and Cedar Rapids Railfans slideshow. I just have a couple of quick notes before the program begins. First off, it is time to renew your membership in the Iowa Chapter of NRHS. The renewal information is included in the newsletter if you receive our Switch Lamp newsletter. Otherwise, you can also go to iowanrhs.com and you can renew your membership or join the chapter with any of the links that are available on that website. You can also order many of the fantastic products, CDs and DVDs that the Iowa chapter has for sale. And as a second note, if you would like to join us for the 70th anniversary of the Iowa chapter, we're going to be celebrating that in Mount Pleasant, Iowa at the Old Threshers Museum on April of 2023. And if you go again to the Iowa chapter website, you can find out more information there, including making reservations for the dinner and keynote speaker that we're going to have available at that event. So, please check out iowanrhs.com. And now we are going over to Barry Anderson's program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December 2022 NRHS Iowa Chapter and Cedar Rapids Railfans YouTube slideshow. We are a month late. This was originally intended as the November program, but due to some circumstances beyond my control, namely some health and family issues, we had to reschedule. And I'm here now with Barry Anderson, and we are going to get a slideshow from the Iowa Interstate. So Barry, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have to offer this month?
Well, several months ago, Tom asked me if I would be willing to do a show on what he called the Iowa Interstate in transition. And I thought that sounded like an interesting topic. So we're going to see the Iowa Interstate basically in the late 1990s and about up to approximately 2008 or thereabouts. So we're going to be seeing some of the units that the railroad had at that time, and we'll see the arrival of the 700s and the arrival of the 150s, and then we'll see some old friends leave the property.
Yeah, and it's good, too, because we have kind of the full timeline now. We've got the Rock Island shutdown program from Larry Anglin's material. We've got from George Davidson the very early Iowa Interstate startup. We had a program from Dave Kroger about the Iowa Railroad and the Milwaukee Road operations. And we have another program of the much more modern Iowa Interstate stuff from 2010 on. So this really does kind of fill in that gap in the history of the Iowa Interstate Railroad for us. So thank you, Barry. It looks like we're starting out here in Iowa City today. Why don't you let us know what we're looking at?
Yes, we are. We are in Iowa City. This is a shot of Iowa Interstate 404, still lettered for Illinois Central. This would have been originally IC 9004, and this is a unit that didn't stick around all that long. I'm showing that it left the property in June of 1994, so this is probably one of the oldest shots that we'll see. But
yes, and that ICG Jeep rebuild power was very, very common on the early Iowa Interstate.
Yes. There was a lot of it. So here's a shot of the engine house at Iowa City. Kind of an overexposed shot, but oh well. we're going to see some of those. So we've got an unrepainted 325 inside the engine house, and then 413 and 479 sitting outside. The 325 stuck around for quite a while after this. 413 did too, and 479 on the other hand left the property, and it also left in 1994. So
yeah,
there's a little bit better shot of the 479.
It's interesting to see they chopped off those. I forget what the exact name is for them, but the downward facing manifold. You can see where it's chopped off and blocked off there across the long hood.
Yeah. Yep, that was also an Illinois Central unit.
Yep.
So. And here's a shot of 250 and 408 coming up the hill track in Iowa City. That used to be a great show when the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City would come to town and interchange. They would drag all that tonnage up the hill track into the yard in Iowa City. That's my old 65 F250 on the very left.
Yes, the powder blue.
Yeah, powder blue. Yeah, it was turquoise. It was a great old beast. But 250 is at the its new home is the ethanol plant in Anawan, Illinois.
It does look like they're working pretty hard. There's a lot of exhaust coming off the stacks.
Yep, I'm sure they were.
Now, just as a little side note here, I moved to Iowa City in the summer of 2001, and the very first night I was in Iowa City, I was at the Hy-Vee on Gilbert Street, and I saw this maneuver happen where the Krandic pulled by, stopped blocking Highway 6, and then sat there for what felt like forever, and then started slowly shoving back. And I didn't know what the operation was at the time. I just saw the line of angry motorists sitting there at 5:15 in the afternoon watching this maneuver going on. Later, when I found out what it was, I just knew to stay away. But I don't think it lasted too much longer after 2001. I think that they ended up building that Yoakum connection shortly after that.
Yeah, it was a real mess because they always did it right at, like you say, right around 5 o'clock. Block traffic. Oh, it wasn't good if you wanted to be somewhere. That's for sure.
Right, but because of seeing this photo, that's what they did is they pulled by and then they shoved back up the hill track.
Yep.
And a lot of times the Iowa Interstate would send switch engine power out of the roundhouse to help pull them up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Krandic sent down usually 3 or 4 Jeep 9s.
Yeah.
So they couldn't shove the whole thing up the hill by themselves either.
No. Yeah, it was quite a sight to see 3, 4, 5 elderly EMDs dragging a bunch of tonnage up the hill.
Yes.
And the Krandic shoving on the other end. Okay, so we got a few kind of pictures at random here. This is the one and only shot, I think, that I ever stopped to take of the Purple Martin train that was briefly out on the Audubon branch just off the Audubon branch north of Atlantic. It's too bad that didn't last longer. Unfortunately, I never bothered to stop to take a look at it other than just to take a picture of it a time or two.
Right. And this is one of the CB&Q Hudsons that was at one time assigned to excursion service. Is that right?
I believe so, although I'm not positive about that. Next up, we have a shot of the Anita Depot. And this is an example of the theory of don't wait too long to take a picture of something. Because I drove past this depot on the way home to see my folks, I don't know how many times. And one day I finally decided to stop, get out, and take a couple of shots of this depot at Anita. And it's a good thing I did, because the very next time I went to see my folks, it was gone.
Wow.
It had been knocked down in the intervening 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. So
Hey,
it's a neat little depot.
Yeah, just a really quick note. That 3007,
Yes.
that was moved to Atlantic, but then it and the cars were all auctioned off in June of 1995. And
Okay.
the 3007 is at IRM now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So the depot here at Anita was got shortened up after the Rock Island derailed and took out part of the depot. So after that happened, they just built a new wall on either the west end or the east end. I'm not sure which it was, but so this was what remained of the depot.
Sure. And what town were you going out to see your parents? I presume where you grew up?
Yep. I grew up in a little itty bitty little town in southwest Iowa by the name of Lyman, which
All right.
no one has ever heard of. Also, on another trip out to southwest Iowa, I stopped one day and took some pictures of the depot in Atlantic. And I think this was probably before the Chamber of Commerce took it over. But it's interesting because at the time the south siding was still in place on the south side of the building.
Yeah.
Got a gon sitting down there. And this would be looking at the west end of the building and west and north side of the building.
Is that train order signal still there? Did that survive?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. But at some point, the Atlantic Chamber of Commerce purchased the building and they renovated it. They did a very nice job of renovating it.
Yeah. I'm just looking at those. There's all those stacks of bricks on the porch there, or whatever you want to call it, on the near side of the building. I wonder if this is the very, very early stages of renovation.
Yeah, it might be. Well, there's a bunch of bricks underneath the dock too, so.
Yeah.
Now we're back to Iowa City, and this thing showed up in town one day. I don't really know what the story is on it. I can only assume that it was at NRE in Silvis for some work, and maybe they ran it out. Maybe the Iowa Interstate ran it out to Iowa City and back to test it out for them. I don't know.
It would be a very Rock Island kind of thing to do.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
You know, anytime that I saw oddball power floating through there, I just always assumed NRE. Was never even a question.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably what happened. And this is a picture of the yard I took on probably the same day. And quite an assortment of power there. We got the 303 on the track beside it, and a whole bunch of boxcars over on looks like probably on the north siding, over on the right-hand side.
Yep.
I imagine those are probably going to go to the printing plant at Marengo at some point.
Have you ever heard that 303 called Green Monster?
Yeah, it was called the Green Monster, Green Bean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fan favorite.
The Iowa Interstate did not have a whole lot of high-hooded Jeeps. That was actually one of the few that they rostered, at least at this time anyway.
Right. They had a handful of them, but most of them were gone by this point.
Uh-huh.
And it was just probably just the 303 and the 325 left.
Yep.
Speaking of the 325, here it is. Also in the Iowa City yard. This one was one of my favorite units.
You know, they put that striping all the way up the front of the short hood.
Right.
The high hooded or high short hood, yes. And that was the only one that got that treatment.
Right. All right. So here we are. Also in Iowa City. I was glad that I found some while I was putting together pictures for this. I was glad that I did find some pictures of the Alcos. So here's a shot of 850 in front of the Iowa City Depot, and the 850 left the property in August of 1999. So
yeah. And I don't know, do you have a date on this picture? Because I noticed the siding is already gone in this picture as well.
yeah, I do not have a date on this, unfortunately. There are some pictures that are missing in this house, and unfortunately I would sure like to have found them for this presentation, but
yeah.
And behind it we had the 800 and the 801. Both of those, the 800 and the 801, were both Providence and Worcester units.
Yes, products of Montreal Locomotive Works.
Yes.
And
they hung on out in Council Bluffs until 2005. They used them as the switchers out in Council Bluffs.
Right.
They really liked them out there, from what I was told.
Oh, I'm sure they probably pulled great.
Yep.
I see we've got pigs on the head end as well.
Yeah. Yep. Got some trailer on flat car traffic. And here they are out on the road. This is out at Yoakum Connection, just west of Homestead. So this is an eastbound, headed for Iowa City.
So at the time this photo was taken, it looks like only the west leg was built.
Yeah, I think so.
Because there was a time when the Iowa Interstate was running grain trains up into Cedar Rapids long before the South Amana Roundhouse was built and before even the east leg of that Y was built. The original connection was just a west-facing switch.
Right. Yep, and then when the interchange between the Krandick and the Iowa Interstate was determined that it was going to move to South Amana, I think that was when they built the east leg of the Y.
Yeah, sometime in there. Yep.
And we have going away shot. So this was the one and only time I ever saw one of these Iowa Interstate coil steel cars. And I can't even guess as to where I would have taken this shot. I really don't think it was on the Iowa Interstate, but I couldn't say.
Well, given that it's right next to a container on what looks like a spine car, I don't remember the Iowa Interstate ever having any loading similar to that.
No.
At least at this time, anyway. They were pretty much all trailer on flat car.
Yep. But yeah, I don't believe these stuck around very long, but they were kind of neat cars.
Yeah, and they were in pretty sad shape even when they first got them.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the trip. This is the trip in 2005, I believe it was. Oh, 2004, I'm sorry. When the 325 left the Iowa Interstate, it headed out to Alter Scrap in Council Bluffs, where it still is today, as far as I know. But this was the train that took it west, and it's quite a lineup on this train. We got an orange and white X ICG, and we got one of the X Chessie LLPX leasers that the Iowa Interstate had for a few years.
You know, seeing this, I'm reminded of, and maybe you have photos of this coming up later, but do you remember a UP funeral train of a bunch of Jeeps that got run across the Iowa Interstate after the C&W purchase?
I do. I don't know if I have any pictures of them or not.
Yeah.
But I do remember that.
I feel like they ran about 18 or 20 Jeeps, all dead in tow, over to Silvis.
And here we are looking at the same lineup from the other end. 402, 401, 481, and 408. The X Chessie unit and the 325 bringing up the rear.
Yeah.
I think we're out at Yoakum out here.
Yeah, or Homestead. I'd say that's pretty good guess.
Yep, one or the other.
Uh-huh.
And a close up of 325 and the 2039. And here they are coming into Marengo. Looks like they've got some boxes back there, 4 or 5 cars deep, so they're probably going to work the printing plant. That was always a neat operation to watch.
It was. I was actually just going to say, this is a good segue for the Iowa Interstate operations at this time, which was you could just about set your clock by a Marengo meet between a Newton crew and an Iowa City crew.
Yep.
At the middle of the afternoon, about 3, 4 o'clock every afternoon. This is what you got.
Yeah, and they switched that printing plant frequently, probably, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times a week. I would guess.
Yep.
And like Tom said, they would frequently meet eastbound while they were out here. Pretty well tied up the town of Marengo for a while it was going on, but it was a great show.
Yes.
But sadly, several years ago, this printing plant in Marengo was bought and sold and bought and sold and bought and sold a number of times. And one time it was bought for the last time, and the new owners immediately announced that they were going to close it. So,
right.
So this went away.
I think the Marengo siding is actually storage now.
Yeah, it's mostly just used for storage.
Uh-huh.
And these are just these pictures are just a couple of shots of some oddball cars that I saw at Homestead. See the station sign over there? That gives me a clue as to where this was.
Half of the station sign, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I thought this old Great Northern hopper was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Still with GN marks. Now we're back in Iowa City with 802 and 303 on a westbound.
Do you remember the heritage of that 303?
I can find out.
I feel like it's one of those things I knew once and have forgotten now.
Oh, that was C&L.
Ah. All right.
Yep. X C&L. And back in the yard at Iowa City, 400 X Rock Island unit there, the 1275, former 1275, and the 303 and the 402. And here we got the 481. We're still in Iowa City. 481, 403, and 603 behind it. Back when the 600s were big power on the railroad.
Yes.
But the 481 was the last one of these orange and white ex-ICG units that was active on the Iowa Interstate as a locomotive.
Yes.
It's still around. It became the fodder for one of the slug sets.
Right.
Which was sad to see. It and the 466 both got cut down and converted into slugs several years ago.
Yep.
And here's a shot of the 900 sitting in the Iowa City yard. And another shot of 481. This is taken, this is out by Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City. Taken off the bridge on Melrose Avenue. It's like they're probably coming back from Marengo, working the plant at Marengo. Or, yeah, coming back, I guess.
Right.
So here we got a westbound in Coralville, and we got the 495 and 481 and a couple other Jeeps behind them.
I think you mean Vernon, don't you?
Yeah, Vernon, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Source of confusion for rail fans everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
So the Vernon siding would have been just to the west of this crossing.
Yeah, it would be right behind me.
Yep. Can't say I ever saw him make a meet there either.
No. No, I don't know that it ever got used much. I remember way back when they used to load trailers onto flat cars there.
Yeah.
But that didn't last very long.
Right.
That old Gray Ghost 495 was, you either loved it or you hated it. But I always thought it had a nice horn on it, if nothing else.
Yeah, it looks like it was a 5 chime. I don't even remember that.
Yeah. And another shot of the LLPX 2039. These were on the property for a couple of years between 2002 and 2004.
Yeah.
I thought these X chassis were kind of neat.
They were trying to phase out some of the really old Jeep power, but they still didn't really have the budget to bring in brand new power, so
right.
This was kind of the transitional phase.
Yeah, they had, I don't remember how many of these chassis they had. There were 2 or 3 of them, but they also had several blue LLPX units. I don't know, 6 or 8 of them maybe. So one
Yes.
time there were quite a few of these things on the property. And here's the same one, the 2039 leading a train. As you can see, my camera had a little leak and it was letting in light where it wasn't supposed to.
Yes.
But I still like this picture, so I threw it in anyway.
That's fair.
And here's a westbound going over the Iowa River Bridge in Iowa City. Looks like we got 628 and 466 and a couple of Jeeps, a couple more Jeeps behind them. Got one of those Cedar Rapids and Iowa City hoppers right behind the power.
Yes.
Like it was a chilly day in Iowa City. And we're out at Kent Park here. 407 in the lead at 602, and one of those blue LLPX leasers behind it. And behind, a few cars deep, we've got it's like several trailers on flat car loads back there.
Yeah. So that was off of the West Liberty loading facility, I believe.
Yeah, it probably was. But that's another thing that's gone. The Iowa Interstate no longer handles trailer on flat car traffic.
Nope.
No, containers only these days.
You know, something else that surprised me about those 600s, you got another one here in the middle of the consist too, is how those ICG Jeeps spent decades on the property and never got repainted. And these 600s showed up, and they were in Iowa Interstate colors before they even showed up.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to tell about that. Like you say, some of that stuff got repainted right away, and 303 never got repainted. It wore its ugly green paint till it left the property.
Yes.
But we loved it just the same. All right, well, we're back in Marengo. We're switching the printing plant again. 484 and 601 and something blue behind it.
Yep. So the cars in the foreground there, the 3 boxes, those were on the printing lead?
No, those are on the main.
Oh, I'm looking at this backwards. Yeah.
All right. They're on the siding, either coming out of the spur to the printing plant or shoving in, one or the other.
Yeah. You can see, you can just barely see that blue engine is kind of starting to curve away a little bit. I can see it now.
Yep.
I was totally turned around.
And here we are. I believe we're in Marengo for a meet. Tying up the town. But
oh, yeah. It really does give you an idea of the scope of the different sizes between those early Jeeps. Because that 484, that was a Jeep 7 or a Jeep 9?
Yeah.
And then the much later Jeep models, as represented by the 625.
Yep. Yep, by comparison, they're huge.
Yeah.
And here's 484 leading another train. 601 behind it. These were the good days. These were the good days on the Iowa Interstate because you just never knew what you would see for power.
Yes. It was always interesting, if not always photogenic.
Right. Well, this is at the Johnson, Iowa County line. Obviously the same train. Going away shot. This was an interesting movement. I had some other shots of this, but I couldn't find. But the 802 went down to pick up a transformer that came from the substation on the Hills line. And so the Krandic brought this transformer up to Iowa City on this heavy duty flat, and they sent the 802 down the hill track to drag it up the hill track. And then it went on west out of town. And I got some shots of it coming up the hill track. I don't know where those are, unfortunately, but I did find these of them going over the bridge and then heading out of town. But that was a neat move.
Yeah, and it probably bears mentioning as well that at this point, the Krandic was still, we talked about they were still doing the interchange moves in downtown Iowa City. They were sending they saw a switch engine based in Iowa City, I think. And they were making at least one trip a week, if not more than one, down to Stutzman's in Hills.
Right. Yeah, they had, at this time, the Krandic still had business in Iowa City, which they don't anymore.
Right.
Everything they had in Iowa City is gone. Yep. Another picture, 325. So here we have something new. We have these LLPX SD38-2s that showed up on the property. We're out at Homestead here, and we have the 400 and the 714 and the 600 in the siding at Homestead. And we've got what's probably an ICCR train coming on the main with, looks like four of the SDs.
So if I'm correct here in saying this was the first 6-axle power that was ever operated on the Iowa Interstate. Or I shouldn't say ever operated. It was the first 6-axle power that the Iowa Interstate had actually used for their own.
Right. Yeah, they had some SD20s early on, but those didn't stick around too long. Unfortunately, I can't find any pictures of those.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about those.
Yeah,
Yes.
but they had 4 SD20s, 100, 101, 02, and 03.
Yep.
But they were only on the property from 1996 to 2001. So.
Yep. Had totally forgotten about those. So.
And I think those were just leased.
I think that what you're looking at, this might be one of the very first trips that they made after that east leg of the connection at Yoakum was put in.
Yeah, probably so.
Because was the rationale behind leasing this power, bringing in this 6-axle power, was to make the grade at Yoakum with a heavy train out of Cedar Rapids.
Right. And here's a shot at West Liberty at the intermodal ramp in West Liberty. We got the 303, 707, 402, and looks like the 413 back there.
Yep, and you can just barely see the overhead crane for the ramp in the background.
Yep. Yeah, it's still out there. although this is no longer an intermodal ramp.
Right.
Hasn't been for several years, unfortunately. That operation just kind of ended. It was, at one time there was they moved a lot of trailers in and out of that place, but it just came to a halt.
Yeah, I don't feel like they even really announced much. They just kind of stopped one day.
Yeah. So here's a shot at Vernon. We got the ski train tied down in the siding at Vernon, and got a westbound going by. This was a great operation to watch.
Yeah.
As they would, depending on the time of the game, they would haul passengers for make several runs before the game started, and then they would tie the train down, and with any luck at all, the Iowa Interstate would have had their eastbound and westbound trains in position, and they'd run both of them through while the Hawkeye Express was tied down for halftime, and before they started making runs again near the end of the third quarter. So this could be quite a show, especially when you got 481 that showed up.
Yes.
Provide a little extra color.
So it was the first, 2 or 3 years of Hawkeye Express that they brought that ski train out?
Yep, something like that.
Yeah, before the Iowa Northern got involved?
Yep. So this is taken at Yoakum, I believe, right at the east leg of the Y. And this was the trip back west after the football season was over. Sent the ski train back to Colorado. Oops. So here's the 405 pulling into the yard in Iowa City with an eastbound.
We got a 710 in there also. Some newer power.
Yep, we got something else new that's shown up.
Yep. And the solid yellow nose with the logo on it, the Rock Island, kind of stylized Rock Island logo on the nose.
Yep. Yeah, Fred Cheney told me one time that he was responsible for the stripes on the nose of the old Jeeps because he was not a fan of the solid yellow noses, but by this time he'd retired, so the solid yellow noses came back.
Yeah. You know, it's also interesting because Iowa City really was a nexus of operation for the Iowa Interstate at this time. They had all their offices, their dispatchers, the engine shops. It was all there.
Yep, it really was. Yep, and it was a great operation. And in the good old days, you could go in and, well, you couldn't get out on the tracks, but if you could take pictures, and as long as you didn't get in the way and do stupid things, they didn't really care very much.
Nope.
But sadly, those days are gone.
Yes.
Well, this was an attempt at an artsy shot on a crappy rainy night in Iowa City. Got the 400 and the 303 taken at the engine house.
It does look like you got very wet trying to take this photo.
I probably did. And there's the 303 again. And we got the SD32s over on the main.
Looks like they're getting ready to depart for Cedar Rapids, actually.
Yep, I imagine you're right. And another shot at Homestead. This would be an eastbound at Homestead. 468, and another one of the relatively new 700s. Those things, the 700s seemed, well, they were new power when they showed up, but it's a little hard to believe sometimes that those things were all built for the Penn Central.
Yeah.
So they're not exactly new anymore. And back in Iowa City, we've got 408 leading some of the SD38-2s, and we got a Krandic unit tucked in behind there, probably going back to Cedar Rapids. Here's the 485, another shot at Yoakum. We got a bunch of boxcars there. I don't know. Looks like maybe they've been out to switch the printing plant. 485 was one of the last of the old Jeeps that hung on. It left the property in December of 2009.
Yes.
So it was one of the survivors.
And you can kind of see the Death Star logo starting to show back through on the nose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can. So here we have a mixed bag of power on the Krandic's ex-Milwaukee line that runs from South Amana up to Cedar Rapids. This is a northbound, about to duck under the rail fan bridge near the Benton, Iowa County line.
Yes, the wooden overhead bridge.
Yep.
It does make for a beautiful shot.
Yes, it does. Now we're back in Iowa City with 4 of the SD38-2s coming into town. They're coming west.
Man, you look at how much mud is in that siding.
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing that the Iowa Interstate has done in the last 15 years or so. They have done a lot of work on their track, and they've bought a lot of new rail, and they've really turned it into a top-notch railroad.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a far cry from what they inherited. Another shot in Iowa City. Got the 700 and 481. 481 is smoking it up.
I think you're literally looking the opposite direction off the same bridge here.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think you're probably right. As a matter of fact, I hadn't thought of that.
Yes.
One thing we've got here in the train on the siding behind 481, we got a couple of reefer cars. And speaking of traffic that's gone away, there's another shot in here, but what used to be the Millard Refrigerated Warehouse in Iowa City used to ship a decent amount of traffic out in reefers, but that hasn't happened for years.
Yeah.
Close up of the 481 and the shot of one of the reefers, an ARMN car came in from the Union Pacific. And here's a rather colorful lineup also in Iowa City. We got one of the blue LLPXs and a 602 and 481 and 303 and one of the blue LLPX leaser units, the GP38s that the Iowa Interstate had.
Yeah, I don't remember how long that solid set of 4 SD38s lasted, but once they broke it up, it was free fall from there. That Is send everything everywhere. We don't care anymore.
Yeah. Whoops. Here's a shot. Here's a shot of an empty coal train. This is taken out at Yoakum Connection. And this used to be another interesting operation out there. You see Jason Clockey there, the conductor, getting ready to swing down off the train and hustle to go get the switch onto the main off the east leg at Yoakum. And then as the train went past the switch, he'd swing back on and away they'd go. But now they're not allowed to do that anymore.
Didn't they used to have a car parked there at one time also?
Yeah, they probably did.
Yeah, I seem to remember that too. So these were, just to give everybody a little bit of background, these were Prairie Creek coal trains. And they were coming off of the CN at Peoria, and they had a whole bunch of these. You can just see a couple of them. They had pink CCP hoppers. This was after the CN, or after the IC had repurchased the Chicago Central, and then also been purchased by the CN. But they had these Cedar Rapids to Peoria coal trains that they ran, and this was the routing.
Yeah, those were some neat cars.
Yeah. You didn't have the solid set of pink hoppers anymore, but you would see them interspersed throughout the train, because they ran with CN system cars.
Yep. And we're in Fairfax here. Another colorful lineup. Headed north towards Cedar Rapids.
I like that Port of Galveston boxcar too.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was back when the Krandik still had quite a collection of those old boxcars like that.
Yeah.
Well, this was the day that the 800s left the property. As you can see, the Iowa Interstate's been painted out, and they've been re-lettered for their new owner, the Southern Railroad in New Jersey. That was in March of 2005. I don't think that came to a very happy ending. I don't think they lasted long on the SRNJ.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think any of them are extant anymore.
No, I don't. I think you're right. And a whole bunch of Jeeps, a whole bunch of black Jeeps, probably the same chassis engine.
Yeah.
627. Seems I only have pictures of the 2039. It's like the same train. More trailers on flat cars back there behind the power.
Yeah. I think your camera got the better of you on this one again.
Yep. A little more light where I didn't need it.
Yep.
So here's a westbound coming through Marengo. 625, 626, and I think we got one other 600 back there. But it's fun to watch him come charging around that big curve in town.
Oh, yeah.
And 303. Looks like we're headed to Marengo. It's interesting. Sometimes they'd send a switcher out to do that, and sometimes they'd have the regular westbound train take care of it. And on the Crandic again, this is Walford. 714 and a couple SD38s. Heading south. Back towards Iowa City.
Yes.
Now we have a new era, something new here. We have the short and rather unhappy experience with the Ohio Central leaser units. The Iowa Interstate leased 4 of these things for a time, and boy, they were at best worn out junk. This 4223 that's leading this train, this is at Kent Park between Tiffin and Oxford. The 4223 was the one of them that wasn't too bad.
Yes.
One of those units, I don't remember which one it was, puked all of its crankcase oil out on a food grade hopper right next to it in the yard in Iowa City. So that wasn't popular. And it was also rather expensive to get that food grade hopper clean too. So
I bet.
I think that was probably a big deciding factor in sending those things back where they came. I think they only lasted about 6 months.
Yeah.
They were tired, old, worn out junk for sure. And up on the ex-Milwaukee, headed for Cedar Rapids. Now we're in the yard in Iowa City, and we started applying some black paint to the SD38s. They ran these things for a while in the blue and white paint, and then they sent them down to Mid-America Car in Kansas City to be painted.
Yeah, and these are the 4 of them that are still remaining on the roster today.
Right. Yep, the 150, 151, 52, and 53 are still on the roster, although currently in storage.
Right.
I always thought one of those blue and white LLPX units would have made a nice rock heritage unit. Not quite the right shade of blue, but just put a big blue R on it, and away you go. But never happened.
Nobody wants to remember that part of the rock. Come on, Barry.
I know. So here we got 3 of those Ohio Central leasers. Looks like it's out at Yoakum again. Looks like they're just heading into the east leg of the Y.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just don't have big hills out in Ohio. Maybe that was the difference.
That could be. Whoops. We had the 9917 leading one day. Well, here's another train. This is 468 coming up the hill track at Iowa City.
It really does give you the scope of the hill track looking at this.
Yeah. Yep, it's steep and it's curvy, and it's no wonder they moved this operation to Yoakum.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. These tank cars that he's coming back with, were those coming from Stutzman's, you think?
Yeah, I think they were. I think this is probably just picking up the interchange from Stutzman's
Yeah.
off the Krandic. So here's a view of the ski train Hawkeye Express on an autumn day.
Yeah, I'm trying to place this. Are you at the crossing by Carver Hawkeye?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Got some very beautiful fall foliage that complements the ski train colors very nicely.
Yeah. Back out at Yoakum, got the 4223 again on an eastbound, and looks like four new-ish 700s behind it. Going around the curve at Kent Park, headed for, well, Oxford will be the next town, if you will. Looks like we got about one of everything there. We got 150 and the OHCR leaser and a blue SD38 and a black one, a couple of black ones.
Yeah.
Here's another thing that used to happen quite frequently, and used to have meets out at the east leg at Yoakum. They'd pull the eastbound right up just almost, so that they would have clearance, but then the ICCR would meet them and they'd head down the east leg of the Y, and then the eastbound would head on. But this was another fun operation to watch. But obviously this doesn't happen anymore.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but
yeah.
This is one of the locations that it's a radio controlled switch now.
Right. Yep, this was back in the good old days when these were still manual throw switches.
Yeah.
There's a shot in the yard at Iowa City, and as you can see by this time, 485's gotten a yellow nose and an Iowa Interstate decal.
Only on the nose, though.
Yeah.
They never repainted the rest of the body, I don't think.
No. And here we are back at Marengo, working the printing plant. Like we must be snagging some empties out of there behind those tank cars.
Track condition still looks a little bit dicey out here at this time.
Yeah. Wasn't horrible, but not great.
It was better than what they got from the Rock Island, but
yeah.
But still not up to today's standards.
No. This is all welded rail on the main through here today.
Yes.
Yeah. Another shot in Iowa City. Got a little bit of everything here. Got some Jeeps, we got some SDs, some containers.
Yeah, it looks like we've switched now from the West Liberty piggyback ramp operation to the actual containers and well car operation.
Yeah. Yes. So here was an interesting little maneuver out at Yoakum. So we got the 626 in a couple of boxes. They're obviously headed to Marengo, and they pulled down on the east leg of the Y to clear for another train. I think they're looks like they're going down I guess they'd be on the west leg of the Y. I take that back. and the other train is on the east leg of the Y.
Yeah, I
I
think
assume
that's
there's
a
probably an eastbound that's on the main, so that's why the 626 and the boxes are in the clear where they are.
right. They're probably doing that same meet you were talking about before, where the ICCR was meeting the CBBI at Yoakum.
Right, right.
And then this switch engine was also out there. They were like, well, we'll just clear up on the other leg of the Y.
Yep, yep. Not a
Yes.
problem.
Did you hike down in here? There's
Yes, I
no way
did.
to drive in there, is it?
No, no. You can use the handy bridge over the where the Milwaukee used to be. That went underneath the Iowa Interstate tracks.
Right.
So this is a trip that Andy Brown and I took to the east end of the Iowa Interstate several years ago. I don't actually remember the reason why, but we just happened to catch CBBI here at Marseilles.
It is even then, this is before, but even now, it's a really nice looking depot.
Yeah, it really is.
Lots of Rock Island code line over on the left side also.
Yes. And I'm drawing a blank on the name of this outfit. This is the branch that runs up to, where is it, Streeter?
Well, isn't this
No,
is the
that doesn't
Illinois
sound
Rail
right.
Net?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we ran into the CSX that day also.
Right. And the CSX operated quite a bit further west at this time as well.
Yes.
Because now, do they stop at Ottawa?
Milepost 95, wherever that is.
Right. There was a time when they went all the way to Bureau and then down the branch line toward Henry.
Right.
But this, I'm trying to remember what this, you don't have a year on this, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, the point being that the CSX, I mean, obviously they're operating because of their lease of the section of the former Rock Island, but that's been cut back significantly. They've turned over quite a bit of the track
Right.
to the Iowa Interstate by the present day.
Yep. Here's a shot of his second unit. Somewhat more interesting than the leader.
Yes.
So here's a shot at the Millard warehouse on the east end of Iowa City. And as you can see, we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reefers there.
Yep, and they were always the Union Pacific system
Yep.
reefers.
Yep, almost always. But, like I say, they haven't shipped anything out of there by rail in years.
Right.
So here's another instance where I hiked out into the middle of the Y. We got the ICCR coming down the east leg of the Y and got the CBBI holding on the main, waiting for these guys to clear up. .400 here, we got a boxcar, presumably for Marengo. And then you see we've got one of those pink CC coal hoppers behind it. And you can't see it very well. There's going to be another picture here that's going to show better what's going on. But they're taking that hopper out to Hawkeye, the siding at Hawkeye, to unload it. And we'll see why here in just a moment. But this was the day of the triple header. This is over in Illinois.
Yes.
This was quite a day.
The 2 Chinese steam engines and the 261.
Yep.
And they were still very Chinese looking at this time also. They had not been
Yeah.
converted in any way.
No. We got CBBI here at coming up grade at Yoakum.
And you're literally looking at the area which is now the South Amana car shops and yard.
Right. Yep, down at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
And here's a picture I took in the Iowa City yard. The 628 and the 625 are parked on the hill track.
Set some handbrakes.
Yeah. This is at Malcolm. This is BICB at Malcolm. Looks like we've got a few boxes there from Marengo.
Yes, and the Operation Lifesaver.
Yeah.
IC Jeep. Yep.
Yeah. We're a little west of Malcolm here. We're nearing where the siding at Ascalon used to be. It's still a little bit to the west, but this is kind of a neat area out here.
Yeah, it is. I think you managed to get the whole train into the photo here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly the top of the hill at Beth, but it's a nice shot.
Mm-hmm. And another train headed up the ex-Milwaukee to Cedar Rapids. And we're coming around the bend at Kent Park. This is another rail fan favorite.
Oh, yes.
Oops. Used to get lava rock out of Colorado, I believe.
Sounds
and these
right.
Union Pacific hoppers. So I saw this Rio Grande hopper, so figured it was worth a picture.
Oh, yeah.
And a westbound at Yoakum. Oops. Looks like this one didn't get focused very well, but we're coming up the hill. Like we're going to come around the bend on the east leg and up onto the main. That empty bulkhead flat back there is kind of interesting. I don't know what that would have been.
Yeah, certainly not the kind of loading that you would expect
No.
to see.
Something a little out of the ordinary.
Uh-huh.
And the same train. This is on the very east end of the big curve at Kent Park. Okay, so there's that hopper car that we saw 8-10 pictures ago. You can see it had a little problem on the trip into Iowa City. So they set it out and took that thing out to Hawkeye, and I'm sure they unloaded it out there.
Yeah, I don't remember the story behind that. But, yes.
I think that was one of the problems with those old Chicago Central hoppers is that
They compressed.
every time they ran a coal train, 2 or 3 or 4 of them got bad ordered every time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And this was the newer version of the Hawkeye Express. The Iowa Northern equipment showed up. And the CBBI going by it.
The 678 has not earned its Rock Island logo yet.
No. Nope. This was back before the welded rail was installed through Coralville.
Yeah.
Looks like the main's a little lumpy in places there.
Definitely.
And 713 is coming into the yard at Iowa City, and looks like we got a westbound on the main ready to head west when these guys clear. And going past the Hawkeye Express, tied down at Vernon. Going away shot. Iowa Interstate had this old hopper car from the Erie Western. I always thought that was kind of cool. Southern coil steel car.
The coiled steel, that was a, I want to say that was a Newton move.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, going to Maytag and Newton.
Yeah, that probably went to Maytag.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of business that went away.
Yes.
And a westbound about to duck under the Highway 6 bridge between Ladora and Victor. I believe we're at Yoakum. Yeah, this is the west leg of the Y at Yoakum with an eastbound. Iowa Interstate has a handful of these old Rock Island flats in maintenance away service.
Yes.
Got 4 or 5 of them, I think.
A Rock Island flat car in front of the Rock Island Depot.
Yep. Again at Yoakum.
You can just barely see that Milwaukee Rock Island overpass.
Yep.
About 4 cars, 5 cars back in the train.
Yep. Another shot at the engine house in Iowa City.
The old and the new.
Yep. Not sure where this was taken, but
They're working pretty hard through there.
yes, they are. But the new power, quote unquote new power, is taking over here.
Yes.
And another one more time on at the curve.
I think that's the same consist.
Yep.
I think you were just a little further.
Yep.
Probably right at the base of the hill
Yep.
there.
Yeah, that
for
was
Walford.
You're probably right.
Where's that at? Do they call that the East Amana Crossing? I don't remember.
Good question.
I think you were at the crossing that's basically at the base of the hill.
Yeah. Yep. And here we are coming back from Cedar Rapids. If this is the day I was thinking of, this was a miserable, stinking, hot, humid day. It was a miserable day to be out rail fanning. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Riding in these unair-conditioned locomotives.
You open the windows, create your own air conditioning, open the front door like these guys did.
Yep, open the windows and prop open the door. Another shot of the Ohio Centrals. And going away. back in the yard at Iowa City. We've got this Montreal, Maine, and Atlantic box right in the foreground.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly headed for Marengo.
Long cut of paper box cars. There's high cubes and regular sized.
Yep. Yeah, they moved a lot of product into that place.
Yep.
So this is a trip that I made to Atlantic. This is the little switcher out at, well, what used to be the ADM elevator on the remnant of the Audubon branch. And this is looking north on the branch, which, as you can see, at that time was not in particularly good shape.
No. And the Audubon branch, I believe, is another section of track that we have lost since then as well.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when that was abandoned. There were, as I understand it, there were bridge issues on that line. So I don't remember the occasion, but I just happened to be in Atlantic at the right time and caught this westbound heading out of town. So I decided I'd chase it for a while, because why not?
Yeah.
Why not add 50 or 60 miles from my journey from Southwest Iowa back to Iowa City? Why not? But coming past the depot at Atlantic, obviously.
Yep. Atlantic Yard on the west side.
Yep. And another shot of them somewhere west of Atlantic. Who knows where. And crossing over Highway 59. This is at Hancock. The what's left of the branch to Oakland is to my left. And the Hancock elevator there in the distance, which ships out quite a lot of grain on the Iowa Interstate. They load grain trains for BNSF there, and some single, other movements, other grain moves out of there as well by rail. So it's an interesting operation.
Very much buried in the weeds in this photo.
Yeah, that's for sure. And this is our last shot. This was an interesting move that the Iowa Interstate would occasionally make. They'd get these brand new Werner trailers. I forget where they were manufactured, but anyway, they were headed to their new home for Werner Trucking in, I believe, Lincoln, Nebraska. And they would have long strings of, 15, 20 of these things. But
yeah, you'd never see them as a unit train, but they would show up as long cuts.
Yep. And this is our final shot. So I want to thank everybody for watching.
Well, thank you, Barry. I really enjoyed this show. A little trip down memory lane for myself as well. Some of my earliest rail fanning that I did was in Iowa City, starting in about 2001, and the time that I was in Ames from 97 to 2001, which was a conversation for a different day, but basically the post-merger bonanza that was the UP at that time. So anyway, thank you, Barry, very much. And everyone make sure and check back in for our January program. So have a Merry Christmas, everyone.